Hello and welcome to Aspen Talks Health. I'm Dr. Nicola Siso, and today I'm joined with Aaron Bigelow. He is the founder of Ampcoil Technologies. Welcome, Aaron.
Good morning.
Good morning. Today we're going to talk about how Ampcoil can help with a variety of different ailments. And so let's begin. My first question to you is, how is Ampcoil the new paradigm for personal awareness?
Okay. Well, first off, we're here in Aspen, Colorado today. In my opinion, one of the most beautiful places on the planet.
By far.
And I was fortunate enough in my young adult years to live here for almost a decade. And the most transformational period of my life. And it also became one of the most challenging times of my life, which helped create this technology, because before I left the valley, I came down with a pretty serious case of Lyme disease. And so bad to the point where I couldn't get out of bed for years.
Years?
Yeah, literally years. And my daughter also ended up with Lyme disease as well. She's now 12. She's doing great. And in my journey, when I was literally lying in bed, and I knew a lot of incredible people on both sides of health and wellness, I realized there weren't a lot of answers for people with these so-called mystery diseases, like chronic autoimmune issues that are debilitating to literally millions now all over the world. And mainstream medicine has done their best job to help. And by the time somebody sometimes gets what's called a diagnosis, it's too late for those things to really make the difference that changes their lives. So in this, I realized there was this incredible opportunity to put a lot of technologies I had already worked with together in one place. And the thing that I also understood, along with this incredible team, is that when people are afflicted with issues like this, that going to a doctor or a practitioner becomes extremely cost prohibitive, especially over weeks, months, years, to the point to where they can't afford to go anymore. So we felt it was our duty to create a technology that people could take back their power from home to literally shift the vibration in their body to where these things no longer existed. And so the feedback we've been getting over the last few years has been phenomenal.
I definitely want to get to the technology, but first, can we explore Lyme disease a little bit more?
Sure.
What are the symptoms? How did you know you had it?
Sure.
Did it come from a tick?
Yeah.
That's how I understand it.
Yeah, happy to.
Please.
Well, like a lot of people that go on this journey, I learned more about it than I ever wanted to know. You know, it's extremely complex. There are a lot of variables. It is extremely debilitating. Majority of the time, you lose your brain function to where you can't even remember what you just said.
Wow.
And so while this is all going on, it becomes so debilitating, like I shared earlier, that a lot of times you can't get out of bed, you lose your job, the families break up, and a lot of times people never see light at the end of the tunnel. And so while this is all going on, this was literally came from what's known as a deer tick. And what happens is a lot of us get bit, and a lot of us don't even know it. About 20% of the time you get what's called a bullseye somewhere in your body where you actually see it. I was, I say now, fortunate enough to not have it that way, because it put me on this journey that challenged me to help create this incredible technology. And just watching all these other people suffer, I said, okay, in my opinion, suffering is optional and doesn't have to be that way. And a huge part of the reason why I'm here today is I came back for an event that you were at also, Lead with Love, which in my opinion is a group of, I would say, the 0.1% of conscious leaders in the world that want to shift these types of possibilities on the planet.
Right.
And so I made it a point to come back to a spot that literally almost ended my life and bring it back full circle and come here and be with these incredible people and be at peace with the so-called disease.
Wow. Why is it that you feel like you can't get out of bed? Is your energy wiped out? Or?
Oh yeah, yeah. So what it really does is it challenges your immune system to a point to where it almost is complete dysfunction. And if you were to think of your body like a fish tank, and if you've ever owned a fish tank, when the pH isn't right in the tank, all the algae and literally like mold fungus starts to grow in the tank.
I've killed some fish that way.
This is what happens to our body when we end up in the throes of something like Lyme. And you can't see it because there aren't really many things out there that will even show that it shows up in your body. So mainstream tests, it'll show up 20% of the time. So people can go for years before they actually even get a diagnosis, if they ever do. And by that point, most likely what's happened to them is they can't get out of bed, they can't think, they literally can't sleep, but they look normal to the outside world. And those of you that are out there that have gone through this or know someone that has, you've seen this. And so therein lies probably the most challenging part about it, because you think you're going nuts because the outside world looks at you like, well, just get on with your life, you're fine.
Wow.
So you're literally being attacked from the inside. And what I've learned over the years is even though a huge percent of our population probably has already been bitten, the ones that have the most chaos in their lives are the ones that show up with the biggest symptoms the fastest. So these, let's call them bugs. These bugs like a chaotic state. They like a party going on. Wow. So until we find a place of peace in our body, we're a perfect host.
Wow.
So the way we've created the technology brings your body back to that place, just like perfect nature, where these things cannot exist.
Interesting. How?
Okay, I knew that was coming. So the first piece of the technology that really plays a major factor is what's known as pulsed electromagnetic field. And it's a technology that has been used for decades with world-class athletes. Astronauts have been using it ever since they've landed on the moon. And it's a technology that basically shifts your vibration back to what perfect nature is, which a lot of people would say is 432 hertz. You know, that's when nature is healthy, the earth is vibrating at a certain level, that's where we want to be. Because of our lifestyles that we have these days and all the negative EMFs and us living on grids where we're not in beautiful places like Aspen, we become that perfect host because our body's energy becomes chaotic, like I talked about earlier. So the pulsed electromagnetic field has the opportunity, because of how we've created it, to go intracellular, past the blood-brain barrier, and neutralize these bugs at their core, where almost nothing else can. And the other big piece that goes along with this is that we created a super powerful biofeedback system that allows the person to get an analyzation of what's going on in the body in real time from speaking into a tablet for about a minute. And once that's done, it's giving a list of priorities of what the body needs in real time. So literally after speaking to it for about a minute, then it creates what we call a journey, and then that journey, basically like a tuning fork, is bringing your body back into that state of peace. We go back to that fish tank analogy where it's raising that immune level, that alkalinity level, back to a place where dis-ease cannot exist.
Fascinating. So is it certain organs are out of radio frequency?
Great question. Great question. So that'll show up is one of the factors. And so we have journeys that will just focus specifically on that. You know, the kidney and the liver are places that tend to get affected the most, and they're usually the hardest places to shift. So because of this being able to literally go into the hollow organs at the level that it does, and because we do it over time, we're building up the immune system to where as we're having these, again, let's call them bugs, leave the body's strong enough to deal with it. And that this is powerful and precise enough to go after it at its core.
Interesting. What are some of the causes to be out of frequency, other than Lyme disease?
Well, just in general, I go back to lifestyle. And a lot of us, we don't even realize that we're getting completely out of balance with nature. And the faster the world moves, the more we get connected to technology, the less we're spending time in nature, the more we become at disharmony with what perfect peace is. And most of us know this, but our lifestyle almost tells us we don't have a choice but to keep going the other direction. And so what this is really doing is giving you an opportunity, even in the most chaotic lifestyle, to take a half hour, come back to that place where the body has a chance to get to a point where it can still deal with the chaos around you. If you don't have the opportunity to go hang out in places like Aspen for weeks at a time. Most people are not in that position.
It almost serves like a hit of nature, like walking through the forest or something.
Yeah, I never thought of it this way, but as we've created it, I'm not someone that ever thought I could meditate. I mean, my form of meditation is skiing, mountain biking, these types of things, but sitting down and being in a place where I just like lose my thoughts and come to what's called oneness, it was just never something I thought I could achieve. But since we've developed the Ampcoil, it naturally brings you to that place without even attempting. So the most anxious ADD people on the planet, almost 100% of the time, we put the coil on them, set up a session, and they're asleep. Or they're in a meditative state within 5-10 minutes, and they get up and they go, oh my gosh, I've never been through that before.
Wow.
So it's literally resetting the nervous system, taking off. A lot of us, in my opinion, walk around with the accelerated cable on from the time we wake up to the time we go to bed. And that's where, again, I'll just call them bugs. The bugs love it when you're in that chaos.
Interesting. So the setup is basically you either lay down or at below you had a chair, kind of lounge chair set up, and it's literally, it looks like a donut almost.
Yeah, I'll explain that. So
Sure.
It's literally a modified Tesla coil. So for those who don't know what that is, it came from Nicola Tesla. A lot of people kind of consider him the grandfather of free energy. And he was so forward-thinking that over 100 years ago, he came up with these concepts. And it was so out of the box back then that the world kind of said, okay, this isn't possible. And there were other power forces that came in that said, oh, we don't even want this out in the world. So here we are 100 years later. The technology has continued to advance. There's been other amazing people that have come along the way to support these types of technologies getting to where we are in 2018. And because of how the coil is wrapped, and because of the power of the amplifier, it's this unique ability to go deep into the body in a way that I'm not aware of anything else does without harming it. And I honestly didn't think it could be possible, but I was fortunate enough to have a great team around me that all got out of their egos to create this possibility. And what's happened over the last couple of years is we also helped set up a foundation. It's called the Wellness for Humanity Foundation. And what that has done is for families that have 3 or more family members with Lyme disease, which, believe it or not, there's tens of thousands of families like this in our country. And the ones that can't afford to purchase the technology from home, we give them a unit for 4 months. And all we ask in return from them is that we get tracking on all kinds of different lifestyle, performance things that they've been dealing with. They report back to us, and through these reports, you can go to wellnessforhumanityfoundation.org, and you can see the statistics. And of these families, 90% of them are at least 90% better within those 3 to 4 months.
Wow.
And if you talk to people that are on these journeys that haven't met us, that isn't even close to the results they're getting even years later from other things that they're doing that usually they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to a lot of times get sicker.
Interesting.
So this is where we say it's the paradigm shift.
Is it an ongoing?
Great question. So I look at it like this, and I've watched this over the last few years since we've developed this, is that there's this time period where in the beginning you're building up the immune system, getting it strong, because most people that are afflicted with these kind of things, their immune system is shot. So they literally almost anything you do to them feels overwhelming. So you build up the immune system first, and as you're building the immune system, you're generally doing 3 to 4 sessions, 30 minutes a day, from home, or you can do it from a practitioner or doctor's office, whatever you prefer. And you're doing this 3 to 4 times a week for probably the first month. And on average, people feel at least a 70% reduction in symptoms even in the first month.
Wow.
A lot of times the first 1 or 2 sessions, it's like the lights turn back on in the brain and they're like, whoa, I haven't felt this way in years.
Wow.
And after the first month, then we're literally just starting to clean up the debris. The things that are left over become much more manageable because you start to feel like you can function again. And then as they're kind of coming back into the so-called everyday world, we're giving them reminders of what not to go back to that caused the problems in the first place, which are usually, believe it or not, toxic relationships, toxic work environments, negative EMFs, reminding them to do things like turn off their Wi-Fi so they can at least sleep without having that in the background. So these little reminders that as they so-called get better, it doesn't come back. And then the interesting part, just in closing on this, is we thought, okay, well, they're going to get better and then they'll probably sell the technology. And they don't, because you can use it for so many other things once all of a sudden you start getting back in the world. All of a sudden your child has a flu, you can help knock it out before it fully manifests. You're getting headaches, you've got back injuries. So it really becomes a situation where you're empowering yourself from home for almost everything that you can think of. And then you end up sharing it with your community. So it's pretty awesome.
That's beautiful. Yeah, there was a girl at Lead with Love that said she was feeling sick and she got on there and she got up and feeling much better.
It goes back to a tuning fork. Most people know what a tuning fork is. When you become back into that place of harmony in the body, so-called disease does not exist. And so, I think that's a perfect example.
One point I just want to make about EMFs is I read a report saying that if you just moved your cell phone a foot to 2 feet away from your body, you reduce your EMF exposure by 80 to 90%.
That I would agree with that. And there's 2 kinds of EMFs, because some EMFs are great. The planet would not exist without EMFs, but there's negative and positive EMFs. So the negative ones are the ones that create the chaos in our field, like a cell phone, like smart meters, like Wi-Fi. Right. Those are the things that we really want to limit our exposure to.
Yeah, so many people walk around with it right by their heart or in their pocket. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you brought up something interesting. You said to talk about the heart. In my opinion, the heart is the most powerful transmitter in the body. So when we use the coil, we put it right here. It penetrates within 4 feet of every direction. And because the heart is such a powerful transmitter, it works like an activator to help the body heal. So it's a pretty profound synergy that happens when you really tap into this. And most of us get completely disconnected from our heart in our lives. We get in our head, and then when we get in our head, the rest of the body starts to shut down.
Yeah.
And I know that with what we were just at Lead with Love is all about remembering and come back to here.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're losing such an incredible, it's like your source of so much knowledge and wisdom, intuition, totally. And your gut, your intuition.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit more the voice part?
Sure.
How does your voice...
Yeah. Well, this is the thing that a lot of people don't realize, and majority of people we've talked to have never taken like a lie detector test. But these days, a lie detector test is done through voice analysis now. Most of us have smartphones, and most of us have used voice-guided texting. Instead of like writing it down, you use your voice and it creates a message in your phone. You go, well, how does that happen? It's all a vibration. So technology is at a point now where everything operates at a vibration, and we're able to harness that vibration in a way that we can put into technology as a feedback loop, whether it's a negative or a positive vibration. So what we've chosen to do is pick the most common things that people are afflicted with these days that take them out of balance and put them into the analytics. So when you speak through this for about a minute, it picks up a strong enough voice pattern to where you're picking up all these things that are in disharmony with the body. And it's put together in such a fashion that anybody can look at it and understand how to use it. We kept it in really simple layman's terms.
What are some of the common afflictions?
Well, almost all of us have some sort of aspect of parasitic activity, viruses. We don't even realize that at times, but you're going to see those show up, and we put it together in a way that is simple for people to understand. Your organs, it's going to pop up like it might say, your liver is at 90%. So at 90%, we say kind of between 85 and 100 are the things you really want to pay attention to. So you see that at 90, that's an area you're going to focus on, and you can actually go right into the programming and do a program for the liver to support that. And a lot of times really shift that number to change dramatically even after one session.
Wow.
So when people really don't understand this at all, I just look at them and say, oh, it's Star Trek medicine. And they look at me like, oh, I get that.
Nice.
So it keeps it kind of fun. And I'm just blessed that we have some of the greatest minds in health that have stepped on board to say, yes to helping us build this over the last 4 or 5 years. And then to be around people like you that are literally thought leaders to get stuff like this out there. And at the end of the day, to help people feel like there's an option other than the things that have continued to fail for them. And to be so simple that they can do it from home by pressing a couple buttons and let the magic happen.
Wow. Beautiful. I'm glad you've done this work.
No, thank you.
So as a reminder and a recap, what can people turn to you for?
What can people, what?
What can people turn to Ampcoil for?
I would say almost a place of feeling like they're going home, like they're coming back to that place in nature where they're peaceful, and that when they're working with this technology, whether they walk into a practitioner's office or are doing this from home, it's that one time in the day to stop the chaos in their life, come back to a place of peace, and know that you're nurturing your body in a way that maybe nothing else does. And then in a short period of time, the wellness that you start to feel becomes so abundant that you actually feel like you can go and do and be more in the world than before you thought you got sick. And that's the common denominator I see with most of the people that come to us. Of the now, probably 100,000 plus people that have been on our technology, that's the general feeling that they have, is that I can actually go out and be more in the world than I thought I was even before I got sick.
Interesting.
And the only time it really doesn't work, as strange as this may sound, is if somebody's literally sabotaging their healing. And that may sound strange, like, well, who would do that? There are people that don't even realize that they get some sort of benefit by staying sick.
Yeah, they get to play victim.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if somebody doesn't want to play victim anymore, we know we can help them.
And from what ailments? That's what I was getting at.
Almost anything that's an imbalance in the body.
Okay.
The only times that I would say it doesn't work is if somebody has a major structural issue that needs to be realigned. That's where going to a doctor or a practitioner that's really gifted in bringing that part of the bones, say, back into place in the body. When those things are realigned, then the Ampcoil's magic really comes in, because it can go and work with everything around that as long as the structure's in place.
Nice. So we have Arthur in Carbondale as a local source, and then how else can people find this technology around?
Yeah, well, for those that are in Aspen, we have a great acupuncturist in town. There's a yoga studio that also has our technology. There's quite a few people that even do this from home and see people all over this area, all over the country, and literally in 10 different countries now. The easiest thing would be, if they're not familiar, is go to ampcoil.com,
okay.
AMPCOIL, ampcoil.com, and you can go in and say, find an ambassador. And we have people literally in all 50 states. And so no matter where somebody is, if they feel like they're ready to start a new chapter in life, we're here to help them move to that level. And so much to the point where I just got a new challenge with a wonderful team to write a book about the journey, and it's called Life After Lyme.
Wow.
So we're writing this, and there's going to be stories of all these amazing people sharing where they were and where they are now and what they're doing in the world. So we just had this conference, obviously, and so I see this book being one of the books that's at the conference next year. So,
excellent.
So I'm super excited about just continuing to share the message and get people to realize that life can be beautifully abundant if you choose to just step out of whatever it was that wasn't working for you.
Right. And realign your frequencies.
Yeah, oh, totally.
I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, is there any other final messages you want to leave for the community?
Well, I would say that you're talking about community. That's the other big part for us is we've also created what we call an Ampcoil Community Circle, which literally is once people literally get better with the technology, we're not only encouraging them to share with their community, but we're continuing to be there for them in a way that usually their families and communities aren't, that creates kind of this place where tools to keep us in our highest alignment are right there for them, and that we want to just keep sharing all these incredible things that come from events like we were just at this weekend that they wouldn't have access to. And that even when they get better, it's not about us being a technology company that just gets them a device. It's creating a movement to literally go back and share that with communities wherever you are. And when you see the effects, it becomes a situation where you're like, I want what you have, you know. And it's like when I feel that somebody comes up and gives me a hug and cries and says, not only did I get my life back, now I can give back to my community. I'm like, for me, there's no greater gift, you know. And so to come back here and complete that circle of where it started, I've already been able to help some dear friends of mine 20 years later that now have really challenging things going on and getting them on the Ampcoil. And I'm just like, wow, this all started here. And if you would have told me that when I left here, literally a year after I left here, I was a day away from being homeless with my family, and then it would come full circle and come back to here and be in this environment in probably one of the wealthiest places on the planet, I would have said, how's that possible? And I guess I just dreamed big enough. And the powers that be said, this is what you get to do. So now it's just about giving back.
You're absolutely right. I mean, we're down to the last minute, but I commend you, and you're right. When you bring yourself to that place of peace internally, it can shift so much, and you can show up and serve your purpose with much more energy.
Yeah.
And greater ease, probably.
Totally, yeah. And I just want to thank you for doing your own work, because it's so easy when I do interviews like this with people that are already on the path, because you get it. You're doing it.
Thank you.
And you know, our tagline, usually I'm wearing this T-shirt that says "Shift happens," and you know, you already understand that.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Aaron, again.
Peace. Thank
Such
you.
a pleasure to have you on the show. As always, you can check out aspentalkshealth.com, and I'll put a link there to the Ampcoil so you can find out more information. Thank you for tuning in.